That just sounded like a different strike.
So good. Good delivery, slightly up at it, 273 in the air to 293 and change.
All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Absolutely delighted to be down at the Elyte Callaway Performance Center in Carlsbad. We are here for a very special reason. We're getting a preview of the 2025 line. We're going to look at some drivers. Delighted to have Nick Arthur with us from Callaway.
Happy to be here.
Nice to have you join us, Nick. We're going to run through the 3 driver models that we're going to focus on in this video.
Yeah.
Elyte this year is what we're going for. Different in name, obviously, even last year with AI Smoke, there was still Paradigm AI Smoke attached to it, a detachment from the naming perspective, but a continuation of the technology. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it symbolizes the fact that we're taking an even bigger step forward.
Right.
And something you had mentioned earlier off camera, we had talked about collecting more and more data. And as you get more data, you get a little bit smarter about what you're trying to do with the design of the golf club. And so we've got another year's worth of data. So all the propeller heads up in R&D are putting that into the machines. The AI is coming up with these calculations that allow us to custom make these faces so that it really suits the player type that's going to pick up that driver and play with it. And it's just made a huge difference in our testing, and we think everyone out there in the golfing world is going to really enjoy them.
I would say last year I was super impressed with AI Smoke, and to hear that more data collected is going to result in a better sort of more or higher performance face, that's music to any club fitter's ears.
Yeah, for sure. It makes my job a lot easier. And the game is already so hard that as a club manufacturer, as a club designer, we're trying to give you a tool that allows you to enjoy the game better, and then for our staff players to have a better career, to win more golf tournaments. And so one way of doing that is to understand how that golfer is interacting with the driver, what their idiosyncrasies are at that level of play, and to make sure that we do even more research and more development and put it into the driver that they're going to use so that it helps them with the results.
How do we think about these 3 drivers then? I mean, other than, as I said, you know, you can think about them vertically, you can think about them laterally. How do you think of them from a design perspective? I know that's been a big part of your role, you know, working with R&D and that side of things. How do we kind of put these in their own buckets?
We're trying to catch, I mean, in a perfect world, you'd have 20 different drivers for all different types of player types. What you're really trying to do so that golfers can go out there and choose a driver pretty easily that's going to work well for them is to take the baseline model, the Elyte, and catch a pretty wide swath of golfers. So it's very neutral, but it has a ton of adjustability. So you're going to capture a lot of guys in the middle of the bell curve. But if you're looking at a guy playing golf for a living, then he's not going to fit into that profile. So we have to have something like the Triple Diamond, which is essentially, for lack of a better term, more of the tour head.
Tour product.
So, and college players would use it, scratch amateurs would use it. Anyone that's going to have that type of ball flight, that type of tendency with their driver shot, they're going to gravitate toward that. And then, of course, you have the Elyte X. Now, the Elyte X is obviously more concerned with some of the typical golfers you can see at the higher handicap level, more recreational level. They're going to see a lot of shots that slice off to the right. And at this point, we're not looking for neutral. We're like, medic, like, give me, like, let me turn this thing over and get rid of some of the fade. And so this one really has a lot more draw bias than even last year's model. But the interesting thing about that one is we can actually put it into a more neutral position, too, than we did with last year's draw model or draw-favored model.
Separation even within that.
Yeah, there's a wider spectrum of shots you can get. You're covering a wider range of shots you can correct for.
Okay. Well, why don't we start out hitting a few here with just standard Elyte. Okay, Nick, I mean, we've got a little bit of a different look here. We've got the matte finish. You know, I was playing with the Triple Diamond earlier on, and you kind of see this one. Was that just consumer research?
Yeah, I think it depends on what model you're talking about. If you're looking at something like the Triple Diamond, sometimes you're going to favor more of what the tour pros have to say in terms of when they give you your feedback. That's how and that would be true for any club you're designed for a better player, wedges, driver, that kind of thing. Yeah. But a lot of times we do not only internal research where we have a lot of people in, but we really want to find out what the golfer that's going to be paying their hard-earned money for the club, we want to know what they want to think about it. So it's really important to not only get the performance right, like a lot of that's engineering, but when it comes down to what really makes you fall in love with the golf club at the golf shop is how it looks, how it sets up. And so we get that feedback about the cosmetics, and we really take that to heart.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, love it.
Love it, let's see it.
Oh, Healy one.
Just the one thing to touch on, no more sliding rail in the back, more of a pinpointed weight placement.
3 kind of set positions.
Yeah.
What do you think of that when you get set positions? Do you like it?
I like it.
Seems to be the favored way to go now.
When you have a bunch of fitters and you go to build something, they're like, oh, slight fade, slight draw. There's none of that. That's fade, neutral, draw. That's it, which is good.
It's a good point.
And the weight's large enough too. It's not like it's a tiny little weight where that you can really dial in.
Yeah. Get some launch on it.
Sounded like it was hit well.
Wasn't bad. Nick, what was that reading to us there?
That was 109 with the club, 162 and change with the ball, 12 degrees, 12.4 with the launch angle, and 2,800 with the spin. 273 in the air, 290 total.
Okay. Kind of way you would expect this to live from a spin perspective if I've, you know, general play, triple diamond or kind of that
More
type of
forward.
a driver, weight forward. So 2,800, it's about right.
Testing outside versus inside, I mean, it sounds great off the hop.
Yep.
Good flight.
Yeah, well, I mean, off the bottom, so I'd be keen to hear how it's managed that from a spin perspective.
It looked like the spin kind of hung in there, 31.75.
That's definitely hanging in there for a thin one like that. I mean, obviously you'll lose the launch, but you know, if the spin kind of stays there, that's okay.
One thing that's always been difficult to describe with enough emphasis is how violent gear effect is on a driver. If you just move the hit location a little bit, like if you went from high toe to low heel and kept everything else the same, face angle, path angle, you'd be looking at, you know, 1,500 to 2,000 RPMs of spin without changing the face angle. So when you hit it thin like that, you would expect to see the spin at 3,500. And what we're trying to do is make it less than that, which is exactly what happened there.
Thoughts so far on it? Feels good, looks good?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think anyone who's looking for a driver that kind of breeds confidence, this is it. You know, definitely elongated at the back, and you know, it's a different look for me, that's for sure. But
how a core model should look.
Yeah.
That's got some launch to it.
Okay, what was that one coming out? I've hit that one decent there.
Yeah, it looked like a solid strike, 108 and 160, 12.5 at 32.99.
So definitely one that we would have some fun dialing in a little bit more. Obviously loft sleeve, weight configuration, but
yeah, you'd be a guy that could probably, if you were going to deliver it like that, you would probably need a little less loft.
Yeah.
And certainly, inevitably, I'd probably move you to a head that spun less.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that'd be the direction I headed for you. Now, for someone else, it might not be the case, but...
Well, let's head in that direction with the triple diamond. It feels like, Mikey, we're into the triple diamond here. It feels like we've got a different product in our hands.
Totally.
I mean, it looks very separate from the standard Elyte model.
Yeah.
I really like, shinier top, but it kind of feels like the kind of top line and the body are a continuation. It's actually very hard to see the sort of the connection between the two, which is really nice.
Very tour inspired shape. You can tell. I mean, even no chevron on the top now.
Yep.
Very, very clean.
They like subtlety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the better players are going to be picking that up, going, this is what we like.
They don't like little guides and helpers and lines and.
Okay, let's see if this is
9 degree
in the right window. That just sounded like a different strike.
So good.
12.4 at 2,600, 107.7 and 161. Good delivery, slightly up at it, slightly from the inside.
Okay.
273 in the air to 293 and change.
Sound on that right out of the gates was just...
money, wasn't it? It's a crack, isn't it?
So good. An early call for 2025 best sounding driver, Elyte Triple Diamond.
Yeah, you thinking?
Totally.
It's a good combination because, you know, typically better players don't want it to be real ringy-dingy.
Yeah.
But they want it to feel like it's got some pop. Now, amateurs don't mind it a little louder.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find what that right balance is. And this one's done a pretty good job. It's got pop to it, but it doesn't sound annoyingly loud. So it's
like, sounds weird, but it sounds fast, this driver, which is good.
Yeah, I just think it, like, when I hit that first one, it was like, crack.
Totally.
It's like a real,
real
well-struck shot. Off the bottom.
That was 109.8, 163.4.
Okay.
Across it, a smidge, 2.8 up, 11.3 at 34.21.
Okay. See if we can get that spin down a little bit.
That sounded so good.
Had a little bit more of my shape to that one, which is better.
Yeah, it looked like you tried to turn that one over a bit.
A nice flight.
12.3 at 26.49, 162 on the ball.
It's definitely no one's going to have an issue with low spin with it. I don't think it's not. Feels like the driver, the Sub-Zeros of a few years ago where they were really, really low spin. Feels like that's kind of went away a little bit.
Yeah, you have to be a little bit. With the tour head, they're always, a lot of the pros are asking more fade, less spin, more fade, less spin, because they want to hit the knuckle cut.
Yeah.
And you can overdo that, right? So especially where you barely have the thing staying in the air. It's moving left to right, and then you get a guy that wants to turn one over, and it starts falling out of the air.
Yeah.
So we want to take the spin rate on a median, kind of middle of the range shot, medium trajectory, kind of a neutral delivery, and put the spin, you know, somewhere in the middle 2000s. And then we've got some things, you know, we can do if we need to make it lower than that.
Totally.
But you don't want to run out of spin.
Like ease of launch, really manageable spin. Cut on me a little bit, but I hit it pretty solid.
And you hit it real solid, 164. It missed the spin.
Okay.
Launch angle 12.5.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that flight. It just, you said, it just leaked a little bit too much.
Just want a little bit moving the other direction on the end there.
Okay, well, I mean, that to me is, that's a winner.
Yeah, that's
a
impressive.
winner, no doubt about it.
Sounds so good.
Let's throw in the X. All right, guys, Elyte X with the drawbys model. This is one I'm really curious about because we really loved last year's Max D, didn't we?
Did so well for us in fits.
It was an absolute fairway finder, but kind of unlike other drivers in the category. We could sort of manage spin, manage launch. It wasn't one of those ones that kind of, you know, got away from you a little bit.
It's a real shot shape changer. Like, sometimes people say, "Oh, give me a draw model. I'm going to draw it." It doesn't really work like that. But the Max D last year did that for customers, and this is a little bit more draw bias this year. So excited to see the performance.
I really am excited by this one. Nick, tell us a little bit about kind of what the mission was to kind of make this one better than last year.
Yeah, when you pull the lever and pull that out for a guy that's losing it, you know, OB right. He's really moving it left to right, and he's done everything he can with his swing, and he's seen his instructor 12 times, and he's working on all that stuff, but he can't get the face squared up, which is, you know, it's a little bit of a pandemic in golf, right? So what we're trying to do is design one that actually had a fairly bit of draw bias, a fairly good bit of draw bias, even more than last year's model. But we didn't want someone to necessarily be stuck there if they wanted a little bit less than that. So we've got a pretty wide range of adjustability on it, but we definitely try to amp up the draw bias on this thing so the guy that's really slicing it has finally got some relief.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. When it turns over.
Ball, yeah.
That actually seemed like it actually had a little less spin on it, Nick, did it?
That one, 21.59. So yeah, it's moving forward. It's not climbing.
Lovely flight.
Pretty good, isn't it?
That was you probably trying to tame it a little bit?
Yeah, just try and well, I felt like the other ones, my miss was probably hanging a little bit,
Okay.
whereas now I can kind of maybe take a bit of that release out.
Yeah.
But it felt good.
Yeah.
What did we get there?
That was 2 and 2 with your delivery, 107.6 and 161.9, 11.4 at 3,010.
Beauty shape to that though. Like, again, it's not a knuckly one.
No.
Keep it in play.
Totally. Tons of flight on it. It feels like you can turn it over and rely on it to turn over. Yeah. To be honest, I've been looking for something that I can, you know, only turn it right to left with. Alex Norton plays last year's Max D, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah.
I think that was what
I haven't checked the specs yet, but he was playing a draw ahead.
I can see why somebody would.
I mean, when it's easy like that.
Yeah.
Sounds good, looks
Especially
good.
too, like sometimes like hit location comes into play as well. Like if a guy heels everything, you can, it doesn't have that much draw bias, it just gives him more ball speed and it's more neutral because he hits it more in the heels. So the CG shift is in line.
Try and hit a few more, a bit more solid in the face.
A performance like that, I wouldn't be ashamed to play a X head at all.
No, I think that's the thing, and this is obviously it's turning over nice and easily. And like Nick explained at the start, I mean, you can make this more neutral than it was last year. Why don't we hit a couple in that neutral position? I'd be keen to see that. Different sound.
Totally different sound. Great flight.
Totally different sound out of that position there.
Yeah, it's like the way you construct, the way you put the parts together, the way they vibrate, the shape of the inside, all that can change a little bit of the resonance you get from the golf club.
That last flight was wicked. It's like a strong, slight draw.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't want to turn nearly as much. Like the sound difference is like blowing my mind.
Crazy.
Okay, so I mean, 3 very different drivers. You talked about if you could, you'd create 20 drivers, but we've got 3. I mean, and obviously there's the fast model and you know, who knows what down the line, but it feels like the spread of performance is wide with these 3.
Yeah, I mean, especially with 3 drivers, you're trying to cover every golfer you possibly can out there. And so you start segmenting and you realize that most golfers are going to be relatively close to the middle of the bell curve. So your baseline model has to get a large swath of those people, but you can't make you can't make it a smart club. So you can't make it so versatile they can get all the way to the ends of the spectrum. So you end up having to break it up. But the key is when you make those 3 models, you want to make sure that whatever the flight characteristics are of each of those individual player types, you want to do a better job at using the research and the AI to really allow the golf club to suit what their misses are and to tighten up the ball flight. And I feel like we've done that this year.
So obviously aerodynamics is another huge story this year. In some of the gains, I mean, in competitive data, you've seen some pretty significant gains, and largely down to, you know, the kind of the speed at which the driver's able to move at. Tell me a little bit about that process and kind of, again, as a refinement, what that means to this line moving forward.
Well, ultimately, everything you're doing with the golf club is you're doing it to create the end ball speed as high as you can. And obviously, club head speed is one of those factors. How much energy you put into the swing. You're going to get a certain amount of energy out the other side with the ball speed. One of those critical elements is how fast the club head's moving. And so as we learn more about aerodynamics, because aerodynamics turns out to be pretty complicated, like it's way above my pay grade. It's all the guys up that are actually, you know, sitting in front of computers trying to figure these formulas out, and these are real aerodynamicists, trying to figure out how can we max out and max out the speed and reduce the drag coming into impact. And they've done a really good job with this model this year. I mean, you're looking at a significant enough gain to where it starts to show up in 1 or 2 miles an hour of ball speed. And when you start to add that, I mean, before, if you got 1 or 2 miles an hour out of the face with the ball speed, you think, okay, this thing's got to be almost illegal. We're so close to the limit. So how then, because this is when I'm working with amateurs, they're like, well, I need more ball speed than that. I go, well, the club's going to be illegal if I give you more ball speed here, but is there a way you could swing it faster? And it's like, he's either's got to go see, you know, his physical therapist, to go see his golf instructor. But nowadays, we can help him a little bit with that part as well, because we can put more energy into the system, making the club faster coming in impact. And it really comes down to the aerodynamics and reducing the drag as it approaches the ball.
Again, so I loved the standard. It just looked to me like what the average player who plays off, you know, 8 to 10 handicap would walk in there. They've got a nice ball flight and go, yep, this will do me. The triple diamond, the sound, the look, the high polish finish. I just think that thing's just, I mean, it's deserving of the name Elyte. It really is. I mean, that thing is special. And this thing continues to just be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife of how do you want it to perform? How do you, if you unlock it, you know, and taking the weights in different positions as you get into the sleeve, this thing seems like it would be so versatile.
This thing's going to be a magic wand, especially for golfers that struggle the most. And one of the things about driving the golf ball is it's not only, if these guys are losing the ball to the right quite a bit, it's not only like physically where it puts the ball in terms of being able to be, you know, on the offensive or on the defensive in the golf course, but it's psychologically how you feel when you leave the tee. So if we can give you a golf club that makes golf more fun, it not only improves your score, but it improves your enjoyment of the game. And this is one of those magic wands we created to help guys do this.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, guys, you know, we need to sort of pose our thought on you guys that Max drivers or Max D drivers, draw bias drivers, we need to lose the stigma attached to those and think about what it is from a ball flight and, you know, a delivery standpoint. I think it really stands to help a lot of golfers. And I think there's, as you said, the amount of data you guys capture and how you design the AI. You know, if players have that kind of choppy delivery where drivers just their nemesis, I think a driver like this is really going to be helpful to help those people enjoy the game more.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. And what the thing that's always the biggest engineering challenge. Like, it's not, you know, when you make a golf club that's going to allow someone to play golf for a living better, you're excited about that because they're going to go represent the company. It's always fun to watch guys like Xander and John Rahm, those guys win golf tournaments doing it. But you really get the most enjoyment, at least certainly from a fitter standpoint. I'm fitting not only the best players in the world, but I'm fitting guys that are definitely not the best players in the world. And watching them start to hit the fairway for the first time in their life and not yelling OB right, 4 right, is more rewarding to me. So this is the most exciting club for me in terms of, from a fitter standpoint, putting it in a guy's hands and watching it perform. Really looking forward to it.
Nick, thank you for running through that with us. That was awesome. Guys, I think we've got 3 phenomenal drivers coming your way, and big shoes to fill because, you know, there's no doubt about it, AI Smoke was a really, really impressive lineup. But what we're seeing here from the sort of, you know, the breadth of options that we have now as fitters for you guys, I think that's what's to be excited at here. So quicker club head speed resulting in quicker ball speeds, more consistent across the face. That can only help you guys moving forward. So hopefully you guys get this in the fitting base soon. Stay tuned for more. We'll see you again soon.